Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am excited to introduce you to a remarkable person who has done incredible things to help communities around the world. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Dr. Ralph Henry, a distinguished economist and development champion. Dr. Henry is celebrating his 80th birthday, and he has dedicated his life to making the world a better place. He is from Arima, Trinidad and Tobago, and for the past 50 years, he has been working hard to understand and improve the way countries develop and grow. Dr. Henry has worked with many important organizations like the United Nations and the World Bank. He has helped countries with issues like education, migration, and reducing poverty. His work has made a big difference in places like Haiti and Botswana. Not only has Dr. Henry taught economics at the University of the West Indies, but he has also supervised PhD students helping to shape the future of economics. He has also held important positions in Trinidad and Tobago's government, showing his commitment to his country's growth. Dr. Ralph Henry's achievements and dedication inspire us all, no matter our age, to work together to achieve a better world. So without further ado, let's get started and learn from this amazing economist and development champion, Dr. Ralph Henry.
Thank you, young Mr. Hope.
You're welcome.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you. You're most welcome. Yeah.
I'd just like to ask you a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
How did you become interested in economics and development? What can you share with us what sparked your curiosity in this career path?
Well, I got prompted to get into economics around the time that Trinidad and Tobago became independent, which is a long time ago, 1962. Wow. At that time, the Prime Minister and his top technocrats of the time were talking about economic development and transformation and the kind of society that they expected to build. And I recognized that economics was going to be an important subject because the people who were talking and getting radio time were economists. And I thought then that maybe I needed to change the career path that I was thinking of embarking on. I'd done Latin, French, and Spanish at my A-levels at Queen's Royal College. And I liked French quite a lot and felt that, maybe I become a teacher of French. Because maybe that's what, you saw others who had gone on and become teachers and so on. And they seemed to have a comfortable lifestyle and so on. But hearing about economics and about transformation and about development, I felt that might be quite interesting. As a teacher, you have plenty of holidays, but as a public servant, you might not have as many holidays, but it might be interesting nevertheless. So I thought I would, get on board, and I started doing a course to get my A-levels in economics. And then the government of Trinidad and Tobago established the College of Arts and Science at St. Augustine. At that time, the facility that existed then was the so-called Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture. And it meant that the government had to invest in creating capacity for undergraduate programs in economics and a number of other areas, and I entered. So that's how it started.
Yes, wow. A very interesting story. Can you share an experience or something interesting that happened from your career that made you realize the importance of helping countries and communities grow and develop?
All right. In the course I did in economics, and also I did also sociology, and realizing that the level of poverty, the underdevelopment of our society at the time, and comparing, in the 1960s, there were a number of countries that were becoming independent. And you realize that the challenge that they were experiencing, starting from such a low level of development. I had read a lot about Cuba, which had a revolution in 1959, and one saw the Fidel Castro and the kind of policies that he pursued in transforming that country. And in Africa, one saw Tanzania, Kenya, and others. And in fact, I had the opportunity of going to East Africa in 1969, and could see firsthand what underdevelopment looked like. Poverty, difficult conditions.
Yes.
Starting with in the case of Botswana, when they became independent, they had less than a dozen university graduates. All right.
Wow.
We were much better off in the Caribbean, but you could see what underdevelopment meant. How do you transform? And in fact, the course I went on in East Africa, they were concerned about how do you transform the one hoe, which is a agricultural implement, a one hoe, one goat, 1 acre economy.
Oh.
All right. But the point is, it had to be, these countries had to be transformed. So in the Caribbean, we were a little better off, but of course we had major problems, and in Barbados and all over the region. Remember that all our societies in the Caribbean transplanted societies with transplanted people. We were brought here. Your great-great-grandparents were brought here, like my own, all right? And we were brought to service the needs of a plantation, tropical plantations that were established by the British and other colonizers to produce for their needs. On independence now, we have to transform our countries to supply for our needs, the needs of the plant of our societies, our people. And we still engage in doing just that. So it has been a challenge over the last 50 years, and we still engage in transforming, changing the nature of these societies where we are producing what we need and what we need to export to get foreign exchange because there are some things that we just have to import. I don't know if I've answered the question, but I think the answer is somewhere in all of that.
Wow. I can understand the feeling of wanting to help people who you can see clearly aren't doing that well. What advice would you give to young people like me who are interested in making a positive impact on their communities or even the wider world?
Good. And I'll first start by reminding you, if you don't know, but if you don't know, well, maybe after this interview, go online and check the World Population Clock.
Wow. Yes.
When you check the World Population Clock, you see plenty of children being born. And it was so when you were born, lots of people being born. And the question is, when you were born, who was brighter? The child born in Bridgetown, Barbados, the child born in Montevideo in Uruguay, the child born in Santiago in Chile, child born in New York, who's brighter? What do you think?
None of them are brighter. You
Exactly.
just have to find your potential.
Exactly. None is brighter. And all would have been born with more or less the same weight. And
You just
actually,
have to make use of your talent.
exactly. But that talent, that capacity has to be cultivated
Yes. And
over your early years. So while you're in school now, that's what you're doing.
yes.
And it means that you are quite possibly just as bright as a 13-year-old in Seoul in South Korea, just as bright as the child in Tokyo, Japan, just as bright as the child in Tel Aviv, Israel, all right? And potentially just as capable as contributing to their own societies as you would be able to do, all right? And in this day and age, it has to do with acquiring the kind of education that is broad. And in the Caribbean, it has to be very broad because we don't know what is going to be coming next. So we need, as I say, a large toolkit, including doing well in subjects that you don't like.
yes. And that toolkit will help you build many projects later on.
Because you don't know what you might have to build. All right.
Yes.
And indeed, in this world of today and tomorrow, you have to produce, whether in a job or whatever, goods and services for Barbados, people in Barbados, but also for export. Because Barbados, being a very small country, as is Trinidad, as is most of the Caribbean, we cannot, when you look around you, and when you go home, look around you and ask yourself, what are the things in the kitchen that come entirely from Barbados, including the implements, everything.
Yes.
And in all likelihood, you'll find that there are very few things. Maybe there might be some fish that was bought, and maybe there's some sweet potato.
Those that were grown locally.
Yes, but most of the other stuff is imported. And although you're a very nice person, and I'm sure the family is the Hopes are a very nice family, and smile just like you, that the people abroad won't sell you all the things that you have at home because you're very nice people. You have to pay with foreign exchange. And in order to pay with foreign exchange, you have to produce something for export, either goods and services, where you could get the foreign exchange to get those things, those goodies that you have around you. That is a challenge.
Yes. Going back to the metaphorical toolbox.
Yes.
I can understand why you wanted to become an economist, to be able to help these countries, because as you say, you're a workman with a toolbox that's just come into the workforce, but the country that you live in does not have the resources to be able to give you a saw or a screwdriver. And you want to help the country be able to pay for the saw or the screwdriver so that you can have that in your toolbox to carry on and therefore build more on the country.
Yes, very well put. Yeah.
The next question is, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges the Caribbean faces today in terms of development? And what do you think can be done to address these challenges?
Huge challenges. And they're almost multiplying. 50 years ago, we were quite comfortable and didn't think that, that the sun, sea, and sand would be in any way impacted, that it's there forever. And what we find today is that if you go on the east coast of Barbados, you can see, that the sea is encroaching.
Yes.
Yes.
And there's
Foul Bay. Is there some place called Foul Bay?
yes.
Yes. Yes. I wonder if it still exists, or if it has become so rocky that you can't be there any longer. Quite likely.
There are places that have seen a massive increase in seaweed. And that has been due to the tides changing and the heat and everything.
Right.
The warming has become an issue.
Yes, it's very, very, very evident.
Therefore, that seaweed is affecting tourist income, which affects our economy. Yes.
Yes. So that global climate change is here. It's here. So that's one of the problems. Another problem that we have is, the narcotics trade, which has led to our people falling victim, a number of our people, but we are also an important transshipment point. Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago in particular, and a lot of the Eastern Caribbean, there's this narco trafficking. And we are both a market, because the narco traffickers see us as a possible place for selling the product, but also a transshipment point. So it means that the drugs come in, and the drugs have to be protected. The police, they don't come through customs. They come through. They come through somehow. Well, sometimes they come through the customs, but the people who are engaged in the trade, they have to have guns to protect their local market.
And guns are expensive.
Guns are expensive, but they are also very costly in terms of the human lives that are lost.
Yes.
So that in Trinidad and Tobago, we have such a mass of weaponry that people are becoming unsafe. Actually, people don't feel safe. So there are these problems, and at the same time, we have to go about transforming an economy that has been reliant on tourism and some other services, and I suppose plantation agriculture and sugar is not as important as it was before. Yeah. So you have to create new sectors, a range of different industries, recognizing that you have this environmental problem. You also have a problem with safety, which is not. If there's a problem of safety, people don't feel comfortable investing, even or locals don't feel comfortable investing because they feel that somebody's going to come and home invasion, shoot them up and so on, try to get their money. So it's a major. We have major problems of development, but yet, since we all live here, we have to find ways of to deal with it, and you have to put yourself in the best possible condition to deal with it, and that has to do with the toolbox. Because when you have that large toolbox and you're looking at yourself in the world, you start seeing that there's just a possibility that I might be able to do something. I might be able to create an app that somebody, 10 billion people might buy that app, subscribe to that app.
Yes.
Because I'm looking out at the world. I have to look. This is the responsibility of young people today in the Caribbean. You have to be able to look at your space and look out at the world, because you have to earn your income both based on what you produce at home for the domestic market and what you can produce elsewhere for people elsewhere to be able to buy the things from elsewhere that contribute to our quality of life. So you have to be, very open to information and monitoring things across the world, using that toolbox that you're accumulating at age 13 and for the rest of your life, because that toolbox you have to add to it as you get older. Knowledge is exploding. You now know about artificial intelligence and so on, and what that will do in the school system. And by the time you're 23, a whole lot of things will come about that you have to be knowledgeable about. And you're just as capable as the person who was born at the same hour as you in South Korea, or in Australia, in Israel 13 years ago.
Yes.
Give yourself a good chance.
Yes, you must. And the toolbox can never become full. You always have to learn more things.
Exactly. Good. That's a good point. You always have to be added to the toolbox to be competitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Throughout your life, you've held various leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
What are some qualities or skills that you think are important for the youth of this age to develop in order to become effective leaders in the future?
Well, leadership is sometimes one puts oneself forward to lead. But I suppose in my own journey, I might have found myself in leadership largely because people thought, well, all right, well, you lead. All right. But even in the organization that I helped to form, Kairi Consultants, where I still work, we don't have a real hierarchy. So I'm the chairman. I've operated as a chief executive, but since it's a kind of knowledge organization, and anybody could come up with a bright idea at any point in time, or the best idea at any point in time. And that's what knowledge is all about, so that leadership is, people are leaders at different points in time. Even within a year, they might be the leadership position in a project. And not because I'm the chairman and one of the people who founded the company, that I might be the lead person in a project. All right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's about others deferring to you because you might have more of the information at that point in time in a particular role that you have to perform, all right, or in the leadership role. And we must, I think, have that sense of that sensitivity, that we may not be the ones to lead at particular points in time and defer to others. And others hopefully will have that same sort of sensitivity to the need to allow you to lead where you have most of the information to take the group forward. In such a situation, you don't have hierarchy. But of course, in large organizations, it's clear that the CEO might be the person who has the most information across the 100 people who might be employed in the firm. All right? But that CEO will still need to recognize that in particular areas, other people may be the ones on whom he has to depend, on whom he or she has to depend for the information to take the organization forward. And therefore, the CEO has to have those kinds of skills such that it can bring teams together where they can all share information and share perspectives in going forward with the organization.
Yes, indeed. I'm interested in becoming an astronaut and building rockets to complete space exploration can cost millions, even billions of dollars. So how do you think that would impact the economy of a country? And what are ways to combat it and sustain a healthy economy when doing so-called big spending such as that?
All right. Barbados and most of the Caribbean countries may not have the resources to have a space, a genuine space program, all right, of building rockets and all of that. We may not have the resources. It's a lot of money, but the cost of getting into space is to some extent falling. And it means that we could be, somebody like yourself could be a part of somebody else's space program. And notwithstanding the fact that Barbados, nor Trinidad cannot be involved, or Trinidad might not be involved, it doesn't prevent you from monitoring exactly what's happening and being in a sense, where the cutting edge is in space. Who is doing what? Elon Musk, India puts more satellites, can put more satellites into operation than the Americans. I don't know if you know that.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So and more and far at a fraction of the cost. All right. So if you're monitoring in our small countries, if you're monitoring what's happening at the cutting edge, you might actually be, because the good Lord shares, just think of athletics. Usain Bolt remains the person who has run the fastest 100 meters. He's in a country of less than 3 million. The fastest man in the world came from a country of less than 3 million.
Yes.
And it means if you extend it into other areas of life, that the person who might have the brightest idea at a particular point in time in respect of a particular area might not necessarily be the person in Japan or the United States or Burkina Faso. The person might be in Barbados.
Well, yes, it must be
So
hope.
the one in 8 billion people. So you must always operate with that notion that I might have the brightest idea, because you're monitoring what's happening in the world out there and understanding even though you don't know exactly how somebody has arrived at the cutting edge in artificial intelligence, etc. But in monitoring, you start knowing what you don't know.
Yes.
Remember that. You start knowing what you don't know, because you can see it goes from this to that to that to that. But then there's something else they have done that I don't know how they did it. So you know what you don't know. And when you know what you don't know, you might start thinking of a way to find out, well, maybe it's this way to go. And you might be the one coming up with the idea that goes beyond what they know at the next stage. And in doing so, you might find that there's somebody at MIT wants you to come on board, or somebody in the Indian system want you to come on board. You might find yourself being attached to somebody else's program if Barbados doesn't have or anybody in the Caribbean doesn't have the capacity to set up a space program. It doesn't prevent you from being involved in space work related to space. You just have to keep abreast of what's happening everywhere.
Yes. Going back to
and
what you said.
do your physics and math. Your physics and math. You have to be A in both. All right.
Yes. Going back to what you said about I may create the best idea, I can create the brightest idea. It also relates, you have to have the toolbox to be able to do the idea. I remember this quote. It says, ideals without power is just a fantasy, and power without ideals is just a waste.
Ideas without
Power
power
in this
is
sense,
just
power in this sense is the toolbox, the metaphorical toolbox.
well, ideas too are part of the toolbox. I wouldn't go so far as to say that one can make anything out of nothing. But
Yes.
really, but really, the idea is critical, because when you have an idea and you work at it, you might actually find that but there's a resource out there, that I can use. So that I think that I regard the idea as perhaps even far more important than the resource and the power. Because in the idea, you come to think, it might take you even into finding the way to acquire the power.
Well, yes. I think that's all of our time here today. I'd like to wish you a happy and an early 80th birthday.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of it. Thank you for coming, Dr. Henry. It was nice meeting with you.
Yes. And in closing, I would say, Ephraim, I hope you remember this conversation. And you had a quote that I hope I can hear it again about the toolbox. You took my metaphor about the toolbox a little further than I have, and I thought I must remember it. It will come back to me. Yes, but the toolbox is critical, and in this stage of your life, it's about assembling that toolbox. You don't know what in it that you have to use 20, 30 years from now, including in subjects that you don't like. So I wish you well, and hope when you reach your 80th birthday, you'll think back at the conversation that you had with me, and you'll do the same for a 13-year-old Barbadian boy or girl, or some 13-year-old in some other part of the world where you may be. Right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was nice seeing you. Bye.
Same here. All the best.